Hey, it's Laura with Low Marie Vintage. Today we're going to play a game called Is It Vintage? I'm going to show you two sets of clothes and you need to guess which one is vintage and which one is not. Alright, first we have this pink floral dress accented with a cream colored cropped cardigan. Simple A-line construction, soft pastel pattern, but the question is it vintage? Next we have a black floral dress paired with a denim jacket. Again, soft pastel colors, also an A-line construction, but the question is it vintage? Second set, we'll call this the polka dot set. Which outfit is vintage? Is it this first one with the polka dot skirt and white sweater? Or is it this second outfit with the polka dot sweater and blue floral skirt? So, do you know which one is vintage? From the first set, if you picked this pink dress, you are wrong. The dress is from Amazon and the cardigan is from Urban Outfitters. And in the second set, if you picked this outfit, you are also wrong. The skirt is from Amazon, the sweater from Forever 21, and the little collared shirt is from Urban Outfitters. Alright, if you're watching this, you're probably a smart cookie, and I bet you got them all right, but for those of you who are confused, let me explain something to you. Right now, the term vintage has become synonymous with rockabilly, pinup, mid-century style, which those items are vintage inspired. They're inspired by a certain decade or decades in our history, but it's not necessarily vintage clothing. Vintage clothing, by the definition of clothing that's at least a generation old, usually the general idea is 25 years. By Etsy standards, it's 20 years. And just because those pieces are inspired by vintage silhouettes, sometimes vintage patterns, that does not mean they fit that vintage criteria. Now obviously I still like that imitation vintage style because I obviously own several pieces. Now they're from Amazon, so you know they're not really vintage. The other side of that is some things that don't necessarily look pinup style or rockabilly style, or you know, like a 50s housewife, people will say, oh, that doesn't look vintage. And also people expect vintage items to look tacky or dated, which those are my favorite pieces. I love tacky dated things, but it doesn't have to be tacky or dated to be vintage, and it doesn't have to be 50s style pinup to be vintage. There are some great websites which I love and follow on all social media that feature this vintage style of clothing, but pretty much rule of thumb, if you can special order a size or pick your own pattern or you buy it on Amazon or something like that, it is not vintage. Also, you have to be careful of people who market these El Cheapo, made in China, mass-produced modern products as vintage just because they fit that silhouette, like the blue skirt used in this video, which I think was $11 on Amazon. I've seen things like that on Etsy, which I know are not vintage, but they're being sold for like 90 bucks, so you do need to be careful. This whole conversation is just kind of buyer beware. Just because something looks pinup style doesn't mean it's vintage, and just because something doesn't look pinup style does not mean it's not vintage. There's a lot of double negatives there, I apologize, but you get what I'm saying. I'm sorry if I didn't have the best examples of pinup, rockabilly, mid-century, whatever style. Like I said, I like it, but it's not. For some people, it's like it is a huge subculture. It's a huge. Some people, that's all they wear, and I'm sure they have much better examples to show you than I do. But I just wanted to show you my El Cheapo Amazon purchases just to get the point across. Some vintage clothing that I own is obviously vintage, obviously dated, and then other things I own aren't as obvious. This dress is a vintage piece, and I will have people say, "Oh, that can't be vintage. That's so cute," or that doesn't look vintage. It is, and fun fact, it actually came from one of my mom's really good friends, the woman who's also the officiant at my wedding, and it's nice that I have a little piece of her closet history in my closet now. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful in some way. If you do want to see some really great vintage pieces, visit Low Marie Vintage at the link in the description below. Please share this video, like this page, and follow me on all my other social media accounts. I'm Low Marie Vintage everywhere. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.